Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becky Setre. I hope you're all doing well. For those of you who is the first time you're watching my video, remember to subscribe to my channel. I normally do videos about nursing, but today I'm going to be doing some health promotion about sickle cell. This topic is very close to my heart because when I left Ghana a couple of years ago, this is something I have learned and I want to share and, help. If it is one person that gets this information and it saves their family or a child, that's good enough for me. So today the topic is how to prevent sickle cell disease. If this is the first time you're watching my video, remember to subscribe. You can share as well because it will help somebody. I'm going to give this information in a very simple language so that it's not complicated or too medically loaded, so that everyone can understand. Anyway, so how to prevent sickle cell disease? As we know, there are a lot of medical conditions out there that cannot be prevented, but sickle cell disease is a condition that can be prevented. Why do I say that? Before we get on, in order to prevent sickle cell, the best way is being aware. So awareness, if you know that you have the trait or you are a carrier or you are AS, or some people refer to it as my genotype is AS, that is the starting point. So if you get to know whether you have it, then when you're going to have a family, you can make that important decision. Now, so what is sickle cell? So sickle cell disease or sickle cell is one of the most common genetic or inherited red blood disorder in the world. Now, in the UK, there are over 240,000 people who are carriers of the sickle cell gene, and there are about 15,000 people with sickle cell disease itself in the UK. In the USA, there are about 8% of that population of the USA have sickle cell trait, and about 300 million people in the world have the trait worldwide. So it's a very common genetic condition. So what is sickle cell disorder? There are two forms of sickle cell disorder, I would say. So the first form I would say is if you have the trait. People say you are a carrier, people say you are AS, people say you have genotype AS. That is one form. And people who have that trait, they haven't got sickle cell disease, they are healthy, so it doesn't affect them in any way. The other form of sickle cell is the sickle cell disorder, where you have got the condition itself. So either you are SS, SC, which I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. So how do we get sickle cell at all? So as I said, is genetically inherited. So before we talk about that, let's talk about the blood and genes. So blood is made up of what? Red blood cells, white cells, platelets, and plasma. And all these parts of the blood actually have their own function that they perform in the body. Red blood cell contain what we call hemoglobin, which makes the blood red, which also helps to carry oxygen. I'm talking about the blood because sickle cell is a red blood disorder, if I haven't said before, and it is hemoglobin disorder. Now, as we know, the genes are the basic unit of hereditary, and it is made up of DNA. And we inherit all our physical characteristics that we have from genes, or through genes from mom and dad or from our parents, and all these genes come in pairs. Okay, now so the normal type of hemoglobin which is found in the red blood cell is called hemoglobin A. People refer to this as genotype A. All right, so apart from the normal hemoglobin A or genotype A, there are over 1,000 different abnormal ones. Most of us only know about S or sickle cell, but there are several other abnormal hemoglobins as well. One of them, the common one, is sickle cell, which is hemoglobin S. We have hemoglobin C, there is hemoglobin D. Even hemoglobin D, there are different forms. We have D Punjab, D Los Angeles, D Iran, and several others. And then we also have hemoglobin E, we have hemoglobin Lepo, and hemoglobin O Arab. There are other forms of hemoglobin disorders, which we call thalassemia. So we have alpha thalassemia and beta thalassemia, but I'm not going to be talking about the thalassemias. I'm going to be talking mainly about sickle cell today. So what is sickle cell trait, or AS, or if I have a genotype AS or sickle cell carrier, what does that mean? So if you're a carrier, you are healthy. It doesn't affect your health in any way. You have no symptoms, but there are a few things I'll mention as I carry on. Now, so the main thing carriers, or if you are AS or genotype AS, as our other people would call it, it means that there is 50% chance that you would pass on that gene to your children. Okay, let's carry on. For people who are AS or carriers, they have to just be very careful or being aware that in extreme situations when there is not a lot of oxygen, they can have some sickle related problems. For example, under general anesthetic. So my advice is, if you're ever going to have a general anesthetic, it's important to tell your doctors you have sickle cell trait or you're a carrier, so it helps them to know how to look after you when they put you to sleep. Also, if you're a sporting person, just be aware, if you're doing extreme sporting activities, you could have what we call exertional sickling that can happen. If you're climbing very high mountains, you're in altitudes and all that, you could possibly have some sickle related problems. So what is the incidence of sickle cell disease in parts of the world? So very common in the malarial belt. So actually in West Africa, which is where I come from, 1 in 4 people from West Africa are sickle cell carriers. So if you put 4 people from West Africa together, 1 of them could have sickle cell trait. 1 in 10 of Black or African Caribbeans are sickle cell carriers. 1 in 20 Asians are sickle cell carriers. And 1 in 100 Northern Greek people or Mediterranean people are sickle cell carriers. So you can find sickle cell in the Middle Eastern areas as well, and even in the Americas, South America, and now in Europe, as I said, because of migration, intermarriages and all that, sickle cell is, I would say, is found in almost every society. So it's very important. Now, so how do we get it? So I'm going to show you something here. So if I am AA and my partner is AS, when we have children, the chances are that, let's show you this picture. I don't know if it's very clear enough. It's not too clear. So if I'm AA and my partner is AS, 50-50, our children would just be AA or AS, so nothing to worry about. Now, as I said, we have hemoglobin C as well, very common in those of us from Ghana. So if I'm AA and my partner is AC, our children would either be AA or AC. Just bear in mind, this is a chance. It is not like one would be this or that. No, it's a chance. Now let's go to where we have what we call carrier couple, which is where I'm very passionate about. So carrier couple, for example, I'm AS and my husband is AS. What could happen is that when we have children, there is 25% chance that our children can be SS. There is 50% chance our children can be AS. There is 25% chance our children can be AA. It doesn't mean the first one would be SS or whatever. It's a chance. You can have 5 or 10 children and all your children could inherit SS. You could be lucky, some may be carriers, some may not even have it, but you cannot. This is a chance. Please listen, it's very important. If I'm AS and my husband is AC, there is 25% chance my child can be SC. There is 25% chance my child can be AC, 25% chance AS, and 25% chance AA. It's a chance again. It doesn't mean the first would be SC and this and that. So please. And also if I'm SS and my partner is AS, our children could either be AS or SS. So bear that in mind as well. If I'm SC and my husband is AC, my children, there is 25% chance they can be AS, 25% chance ASC, 25% chance AC, 25% chance CC. So it's very important to bear these things in mind. As I said, there is another hemoglobin disorder called beta thalassemia. So if I'm AS and my partner is A and they have beta thalassemia traits or are carriers, there is the chance that we can both pass on sickle cell and beta thalassemia, and that would form a type of sickle cell disorder. So why is it important for us to know about sickle cell disease? As I said, it is a long-term medical condition. Now, it has a lot of symptoms. The main symptoms of sickle cell disease, so this is when you have got SS, SC, S beta thalassemia, SD Punjab, and the different types. So the main symptoms of sickle cell disease are, we have pain and anemia. Why do they get the pain? I will show you a picture in a minute. Anemia occurs in sickle cell disease because normal red blood cells, so let me show you, I hope you can see. This is how a normal red blood cell looks like, and this is a sickle cell red blood cell. The normal red blood cell lives for about 120 days before they break down, but sickle hemoglobin or sickle red blood cell only actually lives for 10 to 30 days. So they break down very quickly. So they haven't got enough time to build up to give you that good amount of hemoglobin. So for those of us who haven't got sickle cell disease, our hemoglobin level for females, it can be about 115 to 165. But for someone who has sickle cell disease, their hemoglobin level could be 90 or 80, and that is normal for them. It's not because they are iron deficient, but naturally it's because their red blood cells are breaking down very quickly. Now, what are some of the problems, or what causes this sickle cell pain, or we call it sickle cell crisis, or we call it vaso-occlusive crisis. Vaso-occlusive crisis means that there is occlusion or blockage in the blood vessels. What happens? I'm going to show you a photo as well. So here you are. You can see what is happening here. You can see blockage, red blood cells with sickle hemoglobin inside, causing blockage in the blood vessels. And if there is blockage in your blood vessels, as I said, red blood cells have hemoglobin, and red blood cell travels through your blood vessels, give oxygen to the tissues because of the hemoglobin, which helps carry the oxygen. So if there is blockage in your blood vessels, it means that oxygen is not going to certain parts of your body. So the result of the fact that you are not getting oxygen to certain parts of your body is pain, because there is damage in the tissues where there is no oxygen. We all need oxygen to survive. Our tissues need oxygen as well. So if there is no oxygen, it means there's going to be tissue damage. Hence, they have what we call sickle cell crisis. Crisis can occur in any part of the body. It can be in the legs, in the arm, in the back. They have crisis actually in the spleen, in the lungs as well. Sickle cell disease, it is not a cheap or easy disorder. I know people who have the condition will tell you how it affects them, and you do not want that for your child, especially knowing that you are a carrier, and if you're going to marry, it helps you to make that decision. Now, let's carry on. So what are some of the complications of sickle cell, or some of the problems with sickle cell disease? It is a multi-organ disorder, so it affects almost all the organs of the body. You have anemia, as I talk about. You have pain. They can have strokes. So children with sickle cell from the age of 2 years to about 18 years can have a stroke as a result of sickle cell disease. So that is how serious it is. Some can have silent stroke, which could be affecting their education, their knowledge and all that, but people don't know what is happening. People with sickle cell disease can develop leg ulcers. They can have gallstones. For the men, they can have what we call priapism. Priapism occurs where they have a prolonged erection of the penis, which is not caused by sexual stimulation. There is also the increased risk of infection, and there can be infection in the bone. They can have what we call osteomyelitis. They have AVN, which is avascular necrosis. Avascular necrosis means that necrosis in the bones. And you could see someone with sickle cell disease, by the time they are about 20 years and upwards, they already have had hip replacement and a lot of problems in the bone. So once again, it's a serious condition. If you can prevent it as a couple, I think that would be very good. They have issues with the kidney, problems with the eyes. They can have heart problems, spleen related issues. Their spleen don't work very well. That is why they actually have issues with infections as well. Pregnancy is affected. So if you have sickle cell disease and you're pregnant, you can have a lot of problems, and you need to be monitored by a multidisciplinary team, a hematologist and an obstetrician. And also it does lead to psychological problems. Why do I say that? Because they have this condition. It has affected them from childhood. They have grown with it. Coping with long-term disorder is not easy, so it affects them. Also, it affects the type of job you can do. So if you have sickle cell disease and you want to become a pilot, you can't do that. If you have sickle cell disease, you want to go in the army, you can't do that because you are limited. And also education. They go to school, they're having crisis. Some of them would be in hospital whilst people are writing exams. Some have assignments to submit, but because they are in crisis, they cannot keep up to some of these things. Don't get me wrong. There are people with sickle cell disease who have sailed through. Some are doctors, some are doing what they want, but they haven't got there easily. They've gone through difficulties in order to get there. So these are some of the problems that are associated with sickle cell disease. Now, if you are the main income earner in your household and you have sickle cell disease, you can imagine the impact of your job as well. Now, how do we manage sickle cell disease? In certain parts of the world, we manage them with, they give them penicillin to help protect them from infections, and they're given folic acid. They have painkillers at home so that when they're in pain, they can manage. There are things that we know can trigger sickle cell crisis. Stress is one of them. Dehydration is one of them. Extreme temperature is one of them. And, exertion and all those things. So trying to manage those things in order to prevent crisis. Sometimes you do as much as you can, but if you have crisis, you would have crisis. Sickle cell disease affects the individuals differently. So you can have a family of 2 children with sickle cell disease, and one wouldn't be in hospital in and out. The other, maybe every month they are in and out of hospital. So everybody is different. People with SNC can be slightly milder than SS. We call SS sickle cell anemia. SNC we call hemoglobin sickle and hemoglobin C disorder, or SC disorder. So Is there any cure for sickle cell disease? There is no cure. Although, yes, people can have bone marrow transplant. There is gene therapy, which is now the new thing coming. There is stem cell transplant and all that. But bear in mind, transplant is not just easy. You go through a lot of processes to get the transplant. So, you know, it's important to bear that in mind. If you have questions, do speak to your medical team. I'm not, also to carry on, in certain parts of the world, they have screening programs. For example, in the UK, they have antenatal screening and newborn screening programs. So every pregnant woman is offered sickle cell screening, especially if you live in areas where we call a high prevalence area, where there are a lot of ethnic minorities. Every pregnant woman is offered sickle cell screening. And if you're found to be a carrier, you are referred to specialist team. They see you, they offer blood test to your father of your baby, the biological father of your baby, to see if he's a carrier. If he is a carrier, you will be advised appropriately as to what to do. Now, every baby born in most parts of the UK as well are offered newborn screening. So when babies are born, they do what we call heel prick test. And if your baby is found to be a carrier, you will be informed in certain parts of the UK. Certain parts of the UK, they only diagnose people with sickle cell disease. And every baby born with sickle cell disease itself starts on penicillin and folic acid by the time they are 3 months of age, so that we make sure they don't die early. Because I remember when I was younger and I was back home in Ghana, people say, oh, if you have sickle cell disease, you will not live to see your 20th birthday or 18th birthday. Now people are living beyond that, which is really good, but by the time they're into their 30s and 40s, they're already having all these complications as a result of the damage that has been caused by the sickle cell crisis, or damage due to the sickle hemoglobin that has been in their red blood cells over the period of time. So yes, they are living longer, they are no longer dying. I would say this is in a developing world, developed world, sorry to say. But for places where there is no organized, they are not organized with a care for people with sickle cell, unfortunately and sadly, people are still dying very young, which shouldn't be happening really. And as well, anyway, if you're going to marry, the question is, when is the best time to tell your partner or your boyfriend you have sickle cell, or you have the trait, or you have sickle cell disease? I think as soon as you become serious in a relationship is the best time. I'm not saying when you meet somebody on the first date, say, hello, here I am, I've got sickle cell. No, when you become serious and you're thinking of settling down and you feel, you know what, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, then it's important for you to discuss this very, very important things. It is about your children in the future. Because as you know, as I've already said, if I'm a carrier and I meet somebody who is a carrier, then there is a problem, because we know definitely we have 25% chance of having a child with sickle cell disease if we are both carriers. So should I walk away from that person? It's a personal choice. There are some people who say, you know what, we love each other. They decide to put love before whatever happens. It's their personal choice. I'm not against that. But you need to bear in mind that when you have children and they have sickle cell, it's a big responsibility. And so it's important to bear that in mind. In places, in certain parts of the world as well, when you find couple who are both carriers and they are starting the journey to have children, the options are you remain childless. I know that it's not something that those of us from Africa would want, or you decide to adopt children. Again, that is not something that, because our mothers, our fathers, our great grandparents would tell us, you know what, I'm waiting for my grandchildren, so you have to have your own children. So those are not the things that people would ideally want to go for. But some people can go through what we call PGID. It's very expensive. In certain countries, it is offered free. PGID basically means pre-genetic implantation diagnosis. So in that case, There are criteria they follow. If you meet those criteria, you would have, it's like an IVF process whereby it can take up to 2 years before you get a result. They would take sperm, they would take egg. I'm saying it is not as easy as I'm saying it, but that is the process. Sperm, egg, fertilized, and then they test it, and then they would implant whichever is not affected with sickle cell disease, and then you know that you're having a child without sickle cell disease. So these are the main things. It is important for you to be aware. Awareness is the first thing. Just to add, 19th of June is Sickle Cell Awareness Month, so you can share this video to as many people as you want. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, do subscribe. I'm giving this information. I want to help. I want people to be aware of sickle cell. I want people to go and find out what their genotype or whether they are carriers. The basic test that you need to do is called full blood count and hemoglobin electrophoresis, and this would tell you whether you. So the test required, once again, is full blood count and hemoglobin electrophoresis. That will show whether you are a sickle cell carrier or you have got sickle cell disease. Once again, I have heard people say they have tested in their home countries and they were told they were AA. They have traveled and they were told they are AS. So please go to a very reputable laboratory to have your test done. Anyway, I hope this helps. Share, subscribe, and take care of yourselves. And I will see you soon. Bye-bye.